Hello, in this presentation we will create comparative financial statements within QuickBooks Pro 2018, including comparative balance sheet, comparative income statement, and we'll also create a transaction report by date and take a look at them in context to what we have done so far. If you've been working along with us, we will be continuing on the Get Great Guitar problem. If not, that is okay. We're going to produce a comparative balance sheet, income statement, and transaction report by date, and then look at them in context with what we have done so far, meaning we're going to compare one month to another month and then take a look at the transactions in accordance with the transaction report and how we might use that report to test ourselves to see if we're entering the data that has been entered correctly. Currently, if you have the backup file, you could go to File and restore the backup file to bring you to this point. And we also have the Open Windows list open. That is at the View and Open Windows list. We also have the Home tab, the only open tab being the Home tab, which you can find at Company and Home Page. In order to open that up, that is where we are starting here. We've been entering data into this problem, so if you're working in a file that has the data within the problem, whether it be this data or some other data, we will practice the format of just making a financial statement in terms of a balance sheet and an income statement that is comparison between one period and another period. So we'll first generate those reports. We'll take a quick look at what we have so far, what we've put in place, and then we'll look at the transaction report, and that's a really good report for us to try to see what is happening, and if there's any problems with what's going on, the transaction report's a great report to look at. So that's what we will do here. We've been entering data for January and February of 2021, the year we're working with, and so now we're going to run these reports and take a look at them. So, and first we're going to start off with the balance sheet. So we're going to go to Reports up top. We're going to go to Company and Financial, scrolling down to the balance sheet. Here, and we're going to change the date range. Now this time I'm going to go back up to the range, so if we drill down on it, we could see information. And I'm also going to make this comparison. So we'll do this in a two-step process. I'm going to first go to this item. Well, first let's do this. I'm going to close this back out. First, let's just change this date, and we're going to make it as of a point in time, and that'll be 02/28/21 for our problem. So we've been entering data for January and February. The balance sheet is typically seen as just one date frame, which is the end of the time period. So here is our balance sheet. We are in balance, assets equaling liabilities plus equity on the balance sheet, and that is our information. Now what we would like to do, rather than printing this out, is have a comparison. We would like to see where we stand as of this point versus the prior month. In order to do that, we're going to go to the Customize Report item here. When looking at the information displayed here, we see first the dates. Now note we have a to and a from and a to date now, whereas when we looked at the financial statement, we only had the one date here. That's because the balance sheet's only presented as of one date, but if we wanted to zoom into it, or if we wanted to do some of these other options, we need a date range. What we want to see here is we want to see the prior month. I want to see a comparison. I want to see last month, this month, and then the difference. What we're going to do that is go down here and go to the previous period, and that should give us the previous period. And then I'd like to see the change, which would be the change in terms of dollars, and then the change in terms of percentage. Now if I do this with just this range, it may not give me the full range. What I would like to say is this month, so instead of the 28th, I'm going to say the month of February 1st to February 28th, the whole month. And then we would like to see an equivalent time frame prior to that, which should be the month of January. Note we're not choosing the prior year, we're choosing the prior month in order to run this. If we say OK, then let's see what we have here. We've got the month of February, the month ended in January, and then we see the change in terms of dollars. If we were to calculate this, of course, we would think that we would have, let's make this a tad smaller here, we're going to have the 99,210.56 minus 94,436.17, and that will give us the change of 4,774.39. In order to get the percent change, we're going to take that change column and divide by the prior month, the 94 in this case, in January. 94, 436.17. That will give us, if we move the decimal place over 2 places and round to the 1 decimal, 5.1. That's 5.1. So there is this information. That's how this is going to be calculated. It's really useful to see the change, of course, when we know our own business and we can see the dollar amount change. It's also useful to have this change in terms of percentages, because then you can look at that percentage change, and that will be something that can be compared to other line items as well as to other companies more readily. Other companies that may make more or less money, we can compare these percentage changes, and that often is a useful format. What we're going to do now is we're just going to take this information and export it. This will be our evidence. We're going to export this information to Excel. So I'm going to go to Excel. We're going to create a new worksheet, and we're going to put that into a new workbook. This is the first workbook we have made. We're going to export that. Excel will then generate Excel, open Excel, export this data, create a new worksheet with it, and put this data to that new worksheet. Here it is. Couple things to adjust. I always adjust. It has this split screen all the time when we have it. That's this split screen. I'm going to take that off by going to the Home tab, View, and in the Windows group, I'm going to unsplit the screen. So we'll start off with that. Note that if you go to the View tab over here, you do see the header here. It's the balance sheet. And I'm just going to then change the name. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm just going to call it the balance sheet. I'll just call it the balance sheet. And we'll keep it there since we're not going to have another balance sheet and a comparative. We might want to have to change the names on that, but we'll just keep the tab like that. Then let's save this. We're going to save our other reports to the same workbook. So we'll say save, save as. I'm going to browse to find where we want to put this. Going to scroll up. I'm going to go to desktop and scroll down to the Get Great Guitars. We're going to call it, this is in section 8. We have our amortization table. We're going to put section 8 reports, section 8 reports, and save it there. I'm going to say yes, and there we have that. And then I'm going to close this and reopen it when we create our next report. So that's the first report we want. And then we're going to look at the income statement and do a similar type of report for an income statement. So, or a profit and loss, as it's called in QuickBooks. So we're going to go to reports. We're going to go to company and financial. Take a look at the profit and loss standard. And we could change the dates here now. And we want the dates to be the second month, 02, 01, 21, the year we're in, February 1st, 2021, to 02, 28, 21, February 28th, 2021. This would be the standard profit and loss, the standard income statement that we have been working through on this problem. We would like to have a comparison of February to the prior month of January, and then have a difference calculation as similar to what we had on the balance sheet. To do that, we're going to go to the Customize Report section once again. We currently have the dates here, so we have the month of February already input. We're going to go down to the previous period section. We're going to select that item, and that'll give us the previous time period, which will be January. And so we don't want the previous year, we want the previous month. We're going to change and make sure we see the difference in terms of dollars, and we'd also like to see the difference in terms of the percentage change. Then we're going to say OK, and that'll give us our information. Here's February. Notice it always starts with the later month first, and then the prior month. And then we have the change, and then the percentage change. So if we were to calculate this, of course, it would be the 2000. We'll then subtract minus the 2467. So we'll say minus 2467.4. That'll give us the change of 467.40. We're going to take that number and divide by the prior year, which is the 2467.4, divided by 2467.4, and that will give us, if we move the decimal over, 18.9%, that 18.9. So on the income statement, this change is actually, in some ways, makes more sense than on the balance sheet because the income statement is measuring performance. So when we're looking at the merchandising sales, how many sales did we make, or how much revenue did we make in January versus February, or compared to, there was an 18.9% decrease in performance at that point. However, in total income percentages, then we went from January of 2,975 to 15,800, which is an increase of 431%. So that's a good sign for in terms of February. And so if we scroll down here, we could see those percentage changes, those percentage increases and decreases. This being a new company, new operations, it's going to have a bigger change between the 2 months because the first month is to set up the company. The second month, you get more into the operations of the company. As the company standardizes, then you would expect these changes to be somewhat constant, hopefully at the revenue having a steady increase to them that would be somewhat steady over time. That would be something that we would hope to see. Next, we're going to take a look. Next we're going to print this. We're going to export it to that same workbook that we set up. So we're going to export it to Excel. So we're going to go to Export. We're going to create a new worksheet, but it will go to the same workbook. And then we're going to take that to the workbook we just set up. So it's going to be in an existing workbook. And we're going to browse. That might not be going to the same spot. It is not. So I'm going to select the drop down, Get Great Guitars, Section 8. We want the Section 8 report. I'm going to just double click on that and export. It should then open Excel, create a new tab, export this information to that new tab, and give us that information in that format. Here we have it. I'm going to make the same changes. I'm going to go to the tabs over in the View tab. I'm going to go to the Windows section, turn off the split screen. We can then check the header and see if it's there by going to the page layout. There's the header. Going back to the normal view. Notice it put us in front of the prior one we made. I'm just going to pull it to the outer side. So it's in order. I'm going to double click on it. Profit, I'm just going to call it PNL, Profit and Loss, and save it there. We're going to save the changes up top. Save the changes. Close this item, and we're going to do this. We're going to add one more tab for the one more report, the transaction report by date. Transaction report by date, we're going to go back up to the top, Reports, scrolling down to Accounting and Taxes, and we're going to scroll down to the Transaction List by Date. Transaction List by Date. Going to change the date range just to February, so we're going to go 02/01/21, 02/28/21, and this will list all the transactions that happen. So this is great for grading. It's great to take a look at somebody's work. If you had somebody that was working in the bookkeeping department and you're still asking them to enter the data for the month and you want to see what happened for that month, this is a great report to do that. It's going to give you all the information that has been done over a certain month. If you're grading or something and you're comparing your work to some other work that has been happening, then and you want to see the differences, then this is the report to have. So if you went through the profit and loss and you've been following along here and your February numbers do not match what is on the screen here, and your balance sheet for whatever reason does not match, then we can find the reason by, one, you can drill down on these and take a look at each individual line item. But also, if we take a look at the entire transaction list for that time period, that's the way we can do it here. So this is really what you would want to use to check someone's work and check your own work as we go through a problem such as this. And what you'd have to do is just go through each line of these and tick and tie the thing out. Note what we have here. We've got the type, we've got the check, the deposit, the sales deposits, the bills, the payments, the invoices. We've got the dates, we've got the numbers. These numbers may not, all of the references, you might have some different references. If the reference is a little different, it's not going to change the numbers. We've got the names, we've got the memos, we've got the split accounts, which can be very useful because that's the other side of the transaction. So for example, this went to a deposit and the checking account. This is going to a bill and it's accounts payable, and the other side is inventory assets. Now this one we have a split, meaning it went to possibly more than 2 accounts. So that's why we have a split there. We can't see it. We'd have to drill down on that and see more detail on it. So we can see the one account, but not the other account. And we have the amount. And so this is all going to be, useful information. We can go through this and check line by line. So if you print this report and you've been following along, you should have this line by line, and you want to check them off both ways, meaning you want to go from this report to your report and check every line off on my report. You want to go through these just line by line and check them off. Now, if the date is a little bit off, you may want to double click on it and change the date, refresh the report, and it might be easier to see in that format. However, if everything is within the same month and we started at the same point, then if the dates are a little bit different and the ordering's a little bit different, it shouldn't throw off the end number. So if you could still check them off. So you want to go through mine and check them off on the screen. So you're going through mine and checking off my report to your report first, and seeing that you're checking everything off on my report and looking for any changes that are on my report that are not on your report. And you just want to note those. You'd have to write those down, of course, or if you printed this screen somewhere, then you can tick and tie them out and highlight the ones that you find, check them off, and circle or highlight the ones in another color that you don't find. Then what you'd want to do is go the other way. You want to check your report to this report, and anything that you haven't ticked off, you want to see if there's anything on your side that's not on this side, meaning you might have entered something twice or something like that. And just do the same thing again. Go through this line by line, checking off on your side that you see everything from your report to this report, and you would just go line by line and see any discrepancies with those two that aren't just the date discrepancies, which you could fix as you go by drilling down on them, zooming in, and changing the dates. Then once you go through this and you see the items that are on this report that aren't on yours, and the items on yours that aren't on this, you could then change the dates and see if it's a date problem. Meaning, like if I bring this all the way back to something like 2000, because we've only entered 2 months of data in this particular problem, so it's not like I'm going to have any data prior to that. And if I go all the way out to 2030, something ridiculous, because again we only have 2 months of data, you could go through here again and see if anything has been added that's outside our range of January and February. Meaning, are there any things that happened in January that should have been on this report that are on my report in February, and see if it's just a timing difference that's there. And then if it is, change the date. Is there anything outside of our date range? Meaning there shouldn't be anything entered outside of February. Oftentimes the problem's the date problem. And if it's not a date problem and you don't see anything within the date problem, then if it's on your report and not this report, maybe it shouldn't be there. Maybe you should double click on it and see if it's something that has been duplicated, or why it's why that is the case, why it's on your report and not this report. If it's on this report and not your report, then we can consider adding it at this time if we wanted to try to tick and tie everything out. Go in there, add it, and then try to tick and tie this stuff out. So that's the way this report's really useful. And of course, if anything you want to check, you can double click on it, and you can change anything like the date and whatnot that needs to be changed. QuickBooks is very versatile. I'm going to close this out, and changing information, which is a detriment and a benefit depending on what you're doing. But it's good practice in terms of a benefit to be able to understand how the financial statements work, to be able to change things afterwards and try to figure out and match what you've been working on. So that's going to be that. I'm going to change the date ranges back, and then we'll print this report out. So we're going to say 02, 01, 21, 2, 02, 28, 21. So there's our report. We're going to go ahead and export this one more time. So we're going to export to a new worksheet in the workbook. That we're going to say an existing worksheet. Let's browse for that worksheet. Going to select the drop down. I'm going to go to Get Grid. I want the section 8, and we will go to section 8 report. Once we export, it should then once again open up the Excel sheet. It should export this data to a new tab within that Excel sheet that we have been working on. We will then adjust that tab name and adjust the location. So here's the tab. It's in the middle again. I'm going to just click on that tab and drag it to the right so it's in order as we have been putting this in place. And we're going to put it transaction report. And I'm going to go same items up here. We'll go to the top view and Windows, turn off the split. And we can check to see that the report in the page layout view has the header up top. And then go back to the page, normal page. Note that if we were to print this, we would have to fix the printing, but we'll keep it as is now. Back to normal. All right, and there we have that. It's been, the report is saved there, so I'm going to go ahead and save the changes. Okay, and close this out. And those are the reports that we will be running.